Nuckelavee. All right, let's talk about one of the most disgusting, terrifying creatures in all of mythology, the Nuckelavee. And I'm not joking when I say this thing is pure nightmare fuel. Forget everything you know about monsters. This creature from Scottish folklore is so disturbing that even other demons probably looked at it and said, dude, that's too much. Picture this. You're walking along the coast of Scotland, mist rolling in from the sea, everything quiet except for the waves, and then you hear it. Heavy breathing. The stench of rotting flesh hits you like a wall, and when you turn around, you see something that shouldn't exist. A skinless horse fused with a skinless rider, veins pulsing, muscles exposed, blood dripping everywhere, and one massive eye in the center of its head just staring into your soul. That's the Nuckelavee, and honestly, death might be a mercy compared to what this thing brings. The Nuckelavee comes from the Orkney Islands in Scotland, and the locals didn't mess around with this legend. This wasn't a bedtime story. This was a genuine terror that people believed controlled disease, drought, and death itself. The creature is described as this horrific fusion of horse and humanoid, but with no skin whatsoever. Imagine every muscle fiber visible, black blood oozing from exposed veins, and breath so toxic it could wilt crops and kill livestock. Some versions say the rider's head is too large for its body, wobbling around like it might fall off with a mouth that stretches way too wide. The horse part has legs that are too long, and when it moves, you can see every tendon stretch and snap back. And here's the worst part. Wherever the Nuckelavee goes, plague follows. Crops die. Animals get sick, people break out in disease. It doesn't even have to touch you to ruin your life. But what makes the Nuckelavee truly disturbing is that it's not just a monster, it's a force of nature gone wrong. According to legend, the Nuckelavee is a sea demon that comes onto land during certain times of the year, and when it does, it brings famine and sickness with it. The creature hates everything living. It despises humans, animals, crops, fresh water, basically anything good in the world. Stories say it would ride through villages at night, and its very presence would cause epidemics. Imagine waking up to find half your town sick, animals dropping dead, and realizing that thing you saw at the edge of the forest the night before was the reason. There was no fighting it, no reasoning with it. The Nuckelavee existed purely to spread suffering. And the way people tried to protect themselves, it's almost heartbreaking. The only thing that could stop the Nuckelavee was fresh water, rivers, streams, even rain. The creature couldn't cross it, so people would carry holy water, stay near rivers, and pray for rain when they thought it was near. But if you were caught out in the open, far from water, with this thing galloping toward you, you were done. Some stories describe people running for their lives, hearing the wet slap of skinless hooves behind them, smelling that death-rot stench getting closer, and knowing that if they didn't reach water in time, they'd either be trampled, infected, or driven mad by the sight of it. One famous tale tells of a man who encountered the Nuckelavee on a lonely road and only survived because he managed to leap across a stream at the last second. The creature stopped at the water's edge, screaming in rage, but couldn't follow. The man said he could still hear its breathing in his nightmares for the rest of his life. What really gets me about the Nuckelavee is how visceral it is. Most monsters hide in shadows or strike from the dark, but this thing, it's right there in front of you. Every horrifying detail exposed, dripping, pulsing, breathing. It's a walking reminder that nature can be cruel, that disease doesn't care who you are, and that some things in this world exist purely to destroy. The Nuckelavee isn't just a monster, it's chaos given form, and that's what makes it absolutely unforgettable.
Aswang. Let me tell you about something that still terrifies people in the Philippines to this day. The aswang. And this isn't some ancient myth that people laugh about now. No, this creature is so feared that even in modern times, people lock their doors, hang garlic, and avoid going out at night in certain villages because they genuinely believe the aswang is real. Imagine living in a place where your sweet old neighbor could be something else entirely after dark, where that beautiful woman you saw at the market might be planning to eat your unborn child. That's the aswang. A shape-shifting creature that hides in plain sight. And when night falls, it becomes one of the most disturbing predators in all of folklore. The aswang is a staple of Filipino mythology, and what makes it so terrifying is that there's no single form. It can be anyone, your neighbor, a stranger, someone you trust. During the day, the aswang looks completely normal, living among humans without raising suspicion. But when the sun sets, the transformation begins. Some descriptions say the Aswang's eyes reflect light like an animal's, glowing red in the darkness. Others say you can tell by looking at your reflection in their eyes. It'll be upside down. The creature's favorite prey? Pregnant women and newborn babies. And the way it hunts them is absolutely sickening. According to legend, the Aswang has this long, thread-like tongue that it can extend from its mouth like a grotesque straw. At night, it climbs onto the roof of a house where a pregnant woman is sleeping, and it uses that tongue to pierce through the ceiling, through the woman's belly, and feed on the unborn child. The victim doesn't even wake up. She just feels weaker and weaker until she loses the baby, and no one knows why. In some versions, the Aswang replaces the fetus with something else, like grass or sticks, so the woman thinks she's still pregnant until it's too late. Imagine the horror of realizing what happened, knowing that thing was right above you, feeding while you slept. But that's not the only way the Aswang hunts. Some versions describe it shapeshifting into a massive dog, a pig, or even a bat-like creature with leathery wings. In this form, it stalks the night, searching for children who wandered too far from home or people traveling alone. It's fast, silent, and intelligent. It knows how to avoid being caught. And if you do see it, the Aswang makes this ticking sound, like a clock, that gets quieter as it gets closer. Yeah, you read that right. The closer it is, the quieter the sound. So if you hear that ticking noise getting louder, it means the creature is still far away. But if the sound fades, it's right behind you. What makes the Aswang truly disturbing is how deeply it's embedded in Filipino culture. This isn't just a scary story. People take it seriously. Pregnant women in rural areas are warned to stay indoors at night, to hang garlic and salt around the house, and to keep holy items nearby. Some families won't even announce a pregnancy publicly because they fear attracting an Aswang. There are actual reports, modern ones, of people claiming they've encountered these creatures. Villages have stories of women who were suspected of being Aswangs and driven out of town. It's real fear, real paranoia, and it's been passed down for generations. And here's the thing that gets me. The Aswang could be anyone. It's not some far-off monster living in a cave. It's your neighbor who smiles at you in the morning. It's the woman at the market who seems a little too interested in your family. The idea that evil can wear a human face, that it can live right next to you without you knowing it, is one of the most disturbing concepts in any mythology. The Aswang represents every parent's worst fear, that something out there wants to harm their children, and they can't protect them from it. That's why this creature has lasted so long in Filipino culture.
Tikbalang. All right, let's stay in the Philippines because honestly, Filipino mythology doesn't mess around. Next up is the Tikbalang, and this creature is the reason people in the Philippines still avoid traveling alone at night, especially on old roads or near mountains. Imagine this. You're walking down a trail, everything seems normal, and then suddenly nothing makes sense anymore. The path you've walked 100 times before loops back on itself. Trees look different, directions don't work. You're lost, completely and hopelessly lost. And somewhere in the darkness, something is laughing at you. That's the Tikbalang, a towering, terrifying spirit that doesn't just scare you, it plays with you, confuses you, and leads you straight off a cliff or into danger, all while you think you're going the right way. The Tikbalang is described as this massive humanoid creature with the head and hooves of a horse. But we're not talking about some elegant, majestic horse. No, this thing is twisted. Its limbs are too long, almost spider-like. And it stands way taller than any human, sometimes reported at 7 feet or more. Its hair is wild and tangled, its eyes glow in the dark, and when it moves, it's unnaturally fast and silent for something so big. Some stories say you can hear it galloping in the distance, but you never actually see it until it's too late. It hides in forests, mountains, and rural areas, waiting for travelers who wander off the main path or dare to go out alone after dark. But here's what makes the Tikbalang truly disturbing. It doesn't kill you outright, it messes with your mind. The creature has the supernatural ability to create illusions and confuse travelers. You think you're walking straight, but you're actually going in circles. You think you're heading home, but you're walking towards a cliff edge. People have reported being lost for hours, even days, in areas they know like the back of their hand, and the entire time they swear they hear footsteps behind them, heavy breathing, or that awful horse-like laughter echoing through the trees. The Tikbalang feeds on fear and confusion. It enjoys watching humans panic, stumble, and lose their minds trying to find their way out. And the worst part? There are stories of people who never came back. Families would send search parties, and they'd find nothing. No body, no clues, just gone. Then, years later, someone might find bones at the bottom of a ravine or scattered deep in the forest, and the locals would nod and say, Tikbalang, because that's what it does. It leads you to your death, and it does it slowly, making sure you feel every moment of terror before the end. Some versions of the legend say the Tikbalang can shapeshift or possess people, making them act strangely or wander off into dangerous areas without understanding why. Imagine being controlled by something, walking towards danger, and not being able to stop yourself. Now, there are ways to supposedly protect yourself from the Tikbalang, and they're as wild as the creature itself. One method is to wear your shirt inside out, which is supposed to break the illusion and let you see the real path. Another is to ask permission out loud before entering a forest, literally saying, "Excuse me, I'm just passing through," as a sign of respect. And if you somehow manage to catch a Tikbalang, you're supposed to pluck 3 golden hairs from its mane, which will force it to serve you. But let's be real, if you're close enough to grab its hair, you're probably already done for. What makes the Tikbalang so unsettling is how it plays on a very real fear, getting lost. Not just physically, but mentally. That moment when you realize you don't know where you are, when familiar places suddenly feel alien, when your own sense of direction betrays you, that's genuine terror. And the Tikbalang embodies that perfectly. It's not about brute strength or monstrous appearance, it's about control. It makes you doubt yourself, question reality, and walk willingly into danger, all while laughing from the shadows. That's not just horror, that's psychological torture. And that's why, even today, people in the Philippines still tell stories about the Tikbalang, still warn travelers to be careful, and still feel that chill when they hear something moving in the trees at night.
La Llorona. Now we're getting into one of the most famous and genuinely heartbreaking legends in all of Latin American folklore. La Llorona, the weeping woman. And let me tell you, this story has terrified generations of people across Mexico and beyond. If you've ever been near a river at night and heard what sounded like a woman crying in the distance, your blood probably ran cold, and for good reason. Because according to legend, if you hear La Llorona's cries, you need to run. Don't look back, don't try to help, just run. Because this isn't just some sad ghost wandering around. This is a cursed spirit trapped in eternal suffering, and she's looking for children to drag down into the water with her. So let me break down why La Llorona is so disturbing and why this legend still keeps people away from rivers after dark. The story goes back centuries, and there are different versions, but the core is always the same. La Llorona was once a beautiful woman named Maria who fell in love with a wealthy man. They had children together, but the man was unfaithful, and eventually he left her for another woman. In some versions, he comes back to visit the children, but completely ignores Maria, treating her like she doesn't exist. The rage, the heartbreak, the betrayal, it all builds up inside her until she snaps. And in a moment of absolute madness, she takes her children to the river and drowns them. Some say she did it to hurt the man who abandoned her. Others say she lost her mind completely and didn't even realize what she was doing until it was too late. But the moment she realizes what she's done, the horror hits her like a truck. She screams, she cries, she tries to bring them back, but they're gone. And in most versions of the story, Maria either drowns herself in grief or dies shortly after, unable to live with what she did. But here's where it gets even darker. When she dies, she's not allowed to rest. She's cursed. Her spirit is trapped between worlds, forced to wander along rivers and lakes for all eternity, searching for her children and crying out for them. But since she can't find them, she starts taking other children instead, believing in her broken mind that any child she finds might be one of hers. And that's what makes La Llorona so terrifying. She appears near water, usually at night, wearing a white dress that's soaked and tattered. Her face is pale, her eyes hollow, and her hair is long and dripping wet. When you hear her, it starts as this distant, mournful wailing. Ay, mis hijos, where are my children? And it sounds so sad, so desperate that some people actually feel bad for her. But that's the trap. If you go toward the sound, if you try to help,
You'll see her, and when she turns to face you, her expression changes. The sadness twists into something else: rage, madness, hunger. And if you're a child, or even if you just look young enough, she'll reach for you with ice-cold hands and try to drag you into the water to drown you, thinking you're one of her lost children. The legend says that the closer she is, the quieter her cries become. So if you hear loud wailing, she might still be far away, but if the crying suddenly gets softer, almost like a whisper, she's right next to you. People have reported seeing her standing at the edge of rivers, staring into the water, or walking along abandoned roads near lakes. Some say if you look into her face, you'll see nothing but empty eye sockets, or eyes that are pure black and filled with endless suffering. And there are stories, modern ones, of children disappearing near rivers and locals immediately blaming La Llorona. Parents use this legend to keep kids away from dangerous water, telling them, "Don't go near the river at night or La Llorona will get you." What makes this legend so powerful is the tragedy behind it. La Llorona isn't just a monster, she's a victim of her own pain, her own choices, and a curse that won't let her rest. But that doesn't make her any less dangerous. She's suffering, sure, but she's also hunting. And that mix of sympathy and terror is what makes her unforgettable. You almost feel bad for her until you hear that crying getting closer in the dark.
Skinwalkers. All right, let's talk about something that people are genuinely afraid to even discuss out loud. Skinwalkers. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this is one of those legends that you don't joke about, especially if you're anywhere near Navajo territory. In fact, many Navajo people won't even say the name out loud because they believe talking about skinwalkers can attract them. So yeah, we're stepping into some seriously dark territory here. Imagine this. You're driving through the desert at night. Middle of nowhere, nothing but darkness, an empty road ahead. Then you see something running alongside your car. At first you think it's a coyote or a dog, but then you realize it's keeping up with you at 60 miles per hour. And when you look closer, you see that it's not an animal. It's something else, something wearing an animal's skin. That's a skinwalker. And trust me, you don't want to see one. Skinwalkers, or Yi Nodloshi in Navajo, which translates to he who walks on all fours, are not creatures. They're people. Or at least they used to be. According to Navajo belief, a skinwalker is a witch, someone who has chosen to practice the darkest form of magic. To become a skinwalker, a person has to commit an unthinkable act, usually killing a close family member. That act of ultimate betrayal breaks something inside them and opens the door to this twisted power. Once they cross that line, they gain the ability to shapeshift into any animal they want by wearing its skin. But here's the thing. They're not really becoming the animal. They're just wearing it like a disguise. And underneath, they're still human. Or something that used to be. And that's what makes skinwalkers so disturbing. They don't just look like animals, they look wrong. People who've claimed to seen them describe animals that move in unnatural ways. A coyote walking on its hind legs. A deer with human eyes staring directly at you. A wolf that's too tall, too thin, with limbs that bend the wrong way. And the worst part? They're intelligent. They know you're watching them. Some stories describe skinwalkers tapping on windows at night, mimicking the voices of loved ones to trick you into opening the door, or following people home and just waiting outside. Imagine looking out your window and seeing something that looks like a dog, but it's standing upright, staring at your house with eyes that are way too aware. The Navajo people take skinwalkers extremely seriously. These aren't bedtime stories, they're real threats in their culture. There are modern accounts, like from the 1990s and 2000s, of families on reservations reporting strange encounters, people hearing scratching on their roofs at night, livestock being mutilated in ways that don't make sense, seeing figures in animal skins running across roads or standing in fields just watching. And the thing is, you can't just fight a skinwalker. They have supernatural abilities. They can read minds, curse people, cause sickness, and even possess others. Some say they can mimic voices perfectly, calling out to you in the voice of your mom, your brother, your best friend, trying to lure you outside where they're waiting. There are supposed ways to protect yourself, though. Some people say you need to carry white ash or burn sage. Others say you have to call them by their true human name out loud, which breaks their power and forces them back into human form. But here's the problem. You'd have to know who they were before they became a skinwalker, and good luck with that.
And even if you manage to injure one, they can just shift into another form and escape. There are stories of people shooting at skinwalkers, hitting them, and then the next day finding out that someone in their community suddenly has a gunshot wound but refuses to explain how they got it. What makes skinwalkers uniquely terrifying is that they represent the ultimate betrayal of humanity. These are people who chose to become monsters, who murdered their own family for power, and now they hunt and torment others for fun. They're not cursed victims, they're willing participants in evil. And knowing that they could be anyone, that they're out there watching, waiting, wearing the skin of something innocent, that's the stuff of real nightmares.
Basilisk. All right, let's get into one of the oldest and most insanely deadly creatures in European mythology, the basilisk. And when I say deadly, I mean this thing doesn't even have to touch you to kill you. It doesn't have to bite you, scratch you, or hunt you down. All it has to do is look at you. That's it. One glance, and you're dead. Imagine living in a world where there's a creature so dangerous that even making eye contact with it is a death sentence. That's the basilisk, the undisputed king of serpents, and honestly one of the most overpowered monsters in all of folklore. So let me tell you why this creature terrified people for centuries, and why it's still one of the most disturbing legends ever told. The basilisk comes from ancient European legends, with roots going back to Greek and Roman mythology. It's described as a serpent, but not just any snake. This thing is venomous beyond comprehension. Most versions say it's relatively small, maybe a foot or two long, with a crown-like crest on its head that marks it as the king of snakes. But don't let the size fool you. The basilisk is so deadly that everything about it is lethal. Its gaze kills instantly. Its breath is poisonous and can wither plants and crack stones. Its venom is so potent that even touching something the basilisk touched can kill you. Some stories say that if a man on horseback stabbed a basilisk with a spear, the venom would travel up the spear, kill the man, and then kill the horse too. That's how insanely deadly this thing is. But the most terrifying ability is the death stare. According to legend, if you look directly into the basilisk's eyes, you die immediately. Not eventually, immediately. Your body just shuts down. Some versions say you turn to stone, like you've been hit by Medusa's gaze. Others say your blood boils, or your heart just stops. Either way, the result is the same: instant death. And here's the kicker. It works both ways. If the basilisk sees its own reflection, it dies too. That's actually how people supposedly killed them in the old stories. They'd carry mirrors or polish seals, and when they encountered a basilisk, they'd reflect its gaze back at it, killing it with its own power. Imagine being so deadly that even looking at yourself is fatal. And it's not just the gaze. Everything about the basilisk brings death. Its venom was said to be so powerful that it could poison entire water sources. If a basilisk slithered through a field, every plant it touched would wither and die. Birds flying overhead would drop dead from the fumes it gave off. Some medieval texts claim that the basilisk's hiss alone could kill smaller animals. It was basically a walking apocalypse. People believed that entire regions could become uninhabitable if a basilisk moved in, because nothing could survive near it. Crops would fail, livestock would die, and anyone who went to investigate would never come back. So, how did the basilisk even come to exist? Well, the legend says it's born in the most unnatural way possible. According to medieval lore, a basilisk hatches from an egg laid by a rooster, yeah, you heard that right, a rooster, and then incubated by a toad or serpent. This twisted, impossible birth created a creature that shouldn't exist, and that's why it's so dangerous. It's an abomination of nature, something that breaks all the rules, and that's reflected in its abilities. Everything about the basilisk screams wrong. What makes the basilisk so disturbing is the helplessness it represents. Most monsters you can fight. You can run, you can hide, you can come up with a plan. But the basilisk, one look and you're done. There's no fighting it, no escaping if you see it. And that's terrifying. The idea that death can come from something as simple as eye contact. It plays on that primal fear of not being able to defend yourself, of being completely powerless against something. The basilisk doesn't chase you, it doesn't roar or attack, it just exists. And that existence is enough to end you. That's pure, concentrated horror, death in its simplest, most unavoidable form. And that's why this creature has haunted human imagination for thousands of years.
The Kumiho All right, now let's head over to Korea and talk about one of the most chilling creatures in Asian mythology, the kumiho. And here's why this one is so disturbing. It's beautiful. It's seductive. It makes you want to trust it. And that's exactly how it kills you. Imagine meeting someone who seems perfect, gorgeous, charming, everything you've ever wanted. You fall for them completely. And then, when you're alone together, when your guard is down, they reveal what they really are. And by then, it's way too late. That's the kumiho, a nine-tailed fox demon that disguises itself as a beautiful woman, lures men into falling in love, and then devours their hearts, literally. So yeah, this is horror mixed with romance, and that combination is absolutely terrifying. The kumiho is a staple of Korean folklore, and it's often compared to the Japanese kitsune or the Chinese hulijing, but the Korean version is way darker. While some fox spirits in other cultures can be benevolent or neutral, the kumiho is almost always evil. According to legend, a fox that lives for 1,000 years can transform into a kumiho, gaining supernatural powers and the ability to shapeshift into human form. But here's the catch. To maintain that human disguise and gain true immortality, the kumiho has to consume human livers or hearts. And its favorite method? Seduction. The kumiho typically takes the form of a stunning young woman, someone so beautiful that men can't help but be drawn to her. She's charming, mysterious, perfect in every way. And once a man falls for her, once he's completely under her spell, that's when she strikes. Most stories describe the kumiho as this elegant, almost ethereal woman, but there are always small signs that something's off. Her eyes might glow in the dark, reflecting light like an animal's. She might avoid certain foods or act strangely around fire. Some legends say you can see her 9 tails in her shadow, even when she's in human form. But by the time you notice these details, you're usually too far gone to escape. The kumiho is patient. She doesn't rush. She builds trust, creates emotional attachment, makes you believe you've found the love of your life. And then, when you're completely vulnerable, she reveals her true form, a monstrous fox with 9 tails, and tears out your heart or liver to feast on. And here's what makes it even more disturbing. In some versions of the legend, the kumiho can only become fully human if it eats enough human organs over a long period of time without being discovered. So it's not just killing for survival, it's killing to become something else, to permanently join the human world. Imagine a creature that wants so badly to be human that it's willing to murder hundreds of people to achieve it. There's something deeply unsettling about that kind of twisted ambition. And in some stories, the kumiho does succeed. It completes its transformation, becomes fully human, and lives among people with no one ever knowing the truth about its past. That person who's charming and perfect could have been a monster once. You'd never know. But the kumiho isn't invincible. There are ways to identify one, supposedly. If you see a woman alone at night near a graveyard or forest, if her eyes reflect light, if she seems too perfect, too eager to be with you, those are red flags. Some legends say you can kill a kumiho by stabbing it with a knife dipped in holy water or by trapping it with a certain type of talisman. But the problem is, by the time you suspect something, you're usually emotionally invested. You don't want to believe the person you love is a monster. And that hesitation, that's what kills you. What makes the kumiho so terrifying is how it weaponizes intimacy and trust. Most monsters attack strangers, but the kumiho goes after people who love it. It uses emotion as bait, and that makes it so much more personal, so much more painful. The idea that the person you're closest to, the person you trust most, could be wearing a mask the entire time, that's nightmare fuel. And it plays on a very real fear, that love can be manipulated, that we can be deceived by someone we thought we knew. The kumiho represents betrayal in its purest form, wrapped in beauty and lies. And that's why it's still one of the most haunting creatures in Korean mythology. Pontianak. let's talk about one of the most vengeful and disturbing spirits in Southeast Asian folklore, the Pontianak. And trust me, this one is brutal. If you thought vengeful ghosts were bad, wait until you hear about a spirit that was born from death, pain, and rage, and now hunts men specifically to make them suffer. The Pontianak comes from Malaysian and Indonesian mythology, and it's the undead spirit of a woman who died during childbirth. So right from the start, we're dealing with tragedy, someone who lost their life in one of the most vulnerable, painful moments imaginable. But instead of resting in peace, her spirit comes back twisted, filled with anger and looking for revenge. And her targets? Men. Specifically men who are alone at night. So yeah, if you're walking through a forest or down a dark road in Malaysia and you smell flowers, run. The Pontianak is described as this pale, beautiful woman with long black hair that reaches down to her feet. She wears a white dress, often stained with blood, and at first glance she might seem like a victim, like someone who needs help. But that's the trap. The moment you get close, everything changes. Her beauty twists into something horrifying. Her eyes turn red, her mouth opens to reveal sharp fangs, and her fingernails grow into long, razor-sharp claws. And then she attacks. The Pontianak doesn't just kill quickly either. She's sadistic. Some stories describe her disemboweling her victims, tearing them apart while they're still alive, specifically targeting men because of the rage she feels toward them. Whether it's because a man abandoned her in life or just because she blames men for her death, the result is the same: brutal, violent, painful death. But here's what makes the Pontianak even more disturbing. It announces herself. Before she appears, you'll smell something sweet like plumeria flowers or some kind of perfume. It's this beautiful, intoxicating scent that makes you stop and look around. And then you'll hear her, a woman crying softly in the distance, or sometimes the sound of a baby crying. It sounds so sad, so desperate, that your first instinct is to help, but that's exactly what she wants. The crying is a lure, and if you follow it, if you go toward that sound, you'll find her. And once you see her, once she knows you're there, you're not getting away. Some versions of the legend say the Pontianak can shapeshift or become invisible. She can appear as a beautiful woman to lure men closer, or she can vanish completely, only to reappear right behind you. People have reported feeling a sudden chill, smelling that flower scent, and then feeling cold hands on their shoulders. Others say she flies through the night sky, moving between trees or rooftops, hunting for victims. And there are specific places she's drawn to. Banana trees, for some reason, are considered her homes. So in rural areas, people avoid going near banana groves at night because they believe Pontianaks nest there. There are ways to supposedly protect yourself though, and they're as bizarre as they are specific. One method is to drive a nail into the back of her neck, which is said to trap her in human form and make her docile. Another is to pull out a strand of her hair and stick it into the hole at the top of her head. Yes, really, which apparently forces her to become a normal woman and even a good wife. Some stories say if you manage to do this, the Pontianak loses all memory of being a spirit and lives as a human. But here's the thing, if you ever remove that nail or that strand of hair, she immediately transforms back into the vengeful spirit and will kill you first. So even if you tame a Pontianak, you're basically living with a ticking bomb. What makes the Pontianak so disturbing is the raw, unfiltered rage behind it. This isn't a ghost that's just lost or confused. This is a spirit that is actively seeking revenge, that wants to cause pain because of the pain it suffered. And the fact that it specifically targets men, that it uses beauty and vulnerability as weapons, that's psychological horror. It plays on instincts to help, to protect, to be attracted, and then punishes you for those instincts. The Pontianak is a reminder that tragedy can create monsters, and that some wounds never heal. They just fester and spread. And that's what makes her unforgettable.
Jorogumo. Let's jump over to Japan and talk about one of the most deceptive and absolutely chilling creatures in Japanese folklore, the Jorogumo. And here's why this one gets under your skin. It's patient. It's calculating. It doesn't just attack you outright.
It plays the long game, earning your trust, making you feel safe, and then when you're completely vulnerable, it reveals what it really is. Imagine meeting a beautiful woman who seems lost or in trouble. She's sitting by a waterfall, looking sad and lonely. Your instinct is to help her, right? So you approach, you talk to her, maybe she invites you back to her place. And then once you're alone with her, once there's no escape, she transforms into a giant spider and wraps you up in silk to eat you later. That's the Jorokumo, a spider demon that disguises itself as a gorgeous woman, and by the time you realize what's happening, you're already trapped in her web. The Jorokumo legend comes from Japanese mythology, and the name literally translates to binding bride or whore spider, which should tell you everything you need to know about how this creature operates. According to the legend, when a spider lives for around 400 years, it gains magical powers and the ability to shapeshift into human form. And it doesn't just become any human, it becomes a stunningly beautiful young woman, specifically designed to attract men. She's elegant, soft-spoken, charming, everything you'd want. And she usually appears near waterfalls, rivers, or abandoned buildings, looking like she needs help or company. Some versions describe her playing a biwa, which is a traditional Japanese instrument, and the music is so beautiful and hypnotic that men are drawn to her like moths to a flame. But once you're close enough, once you're inside her home or isolated with her, that's when things go sideways. The Jorokumo drops the disguise. Her beautiful face twists, her body contorts, and she reveals her true form, a massive spider with long, spindly legs and multiple eyes. And here's the worst part. She's been spinning webs this entire time. While you were distracted by her beauty, while you thought you were safe, she was setting the trap. Suddenly you realize you can't move. Your arms are stuck. Your legs won't respond. You look down and see silk threads wrapped around your body, and no matter how hard you struggle, they only get tighter. The Jorokumo doesn't kill you immediately, though. Oh no, she wraps you up completely, cocooning you in her web, and then she stores you away to feed on later. You're still alive when she does this. You're conscious. You can feel every moment of it. And what makes the Jorokumo even more disturbing is that she's smart. She doesn't just rely on brute strength. She uses psychological manipulation. In some stories, she'll keep a man alive for days or even weeks, appearing to him in human form again, talking to him sweetly, making him think maybe there's a way out. Maybe if he cooperates, she'll let him go. But it's all a game to her. She's feeding off his fear and desperation. Some versions say she can control smaller spiders and send them to do her bidding, creating an entire network of surveillance. So even if you think you're safe, even if you think you've escaped, her spiders are watching, reporting back, and she'll come for you when you least expect it. There are stories of men who managed to escape the Jorokumo, but they're rare. One famous tale describes a man who noticed something was wrong when he saw the woman's reflection in water. Instead of a human, he saw a giant spider. He pretended everything was fine, waited until she was distracted, and then ran for his life. Another story tells of a man who brought his dog with him, and the dog sensed what she really was and attacked her, giving the man time to escape. But most men who encounter the Jorokumo, they're never seen again. Their families search for them, but all they find are abandoned buildings with thick webs in the corners and the faint smell of decay. What makes the Jorokumo so terrifying is how it weaponizes beauty and loneliness. It preys on the human desire for connection, for intimacy, for helping someone in need, and then it punishes you for having those instincts. The Jorokumo represents every fear about deception, that what looks beautiful might be deadly, that someone you trust might be hiding something monstrous, and that by the time you figure it out, it's already too late. She's not just a monster, she's a reminder that predators come in all forms, and the most dangerous ones are the ones you never see coming.
The Oni. Now let's talk about one of the most iconic and absolutely brutal creatures in Japanese mythology, the Oni. And these things are not your typical demons. They're massive, monstrous, and they exist for one purpose: to punish and devour human souls in the afterlife. Imagine dying and thinking, okay, it's over, I can rest now. But instead of peace, you wake up in hell,
And standing in front of you is this towering muscular demon with red or blue skin, wild hair, horns growing out of its head, and a massive iron club that it's about to use to pulverize you. That's an Oni. And according to Japanese Buddhist mythology, if you were a really bad person in life, if you lied, cheated, killed, or committed evil acts, the Oni are waiting for you on the other side. And trust me, what they do to you makes anything on Earth look like a vacation. The Oni are described as these hulking, terrifying figures, usually standing anywhere from 7 to 10 feet tall. They have thick muscles, sharp claws, wild, tangled hair, and horns that look like they could gore you in half. Their skin is usually red, blue, or sometimes green, and their faces are twisted into permanent expressions of rage and hunger. They carry these massive iron clubs called kanabo, which are covered in spikes, and they use them to crush souls, break bones, and deliver punishment to the wicked. But here's what makes Oni truly disturbing. They don't just kill you, they torture you. Over and over. Forever. Because in the afterlife, you can't die. You just suffer endlessly while they laugh and feast on your flesh. According to Japanese Buddhist beliefs, when you die, your soul is judged. And if you've committed terrible sins, you're sent to one of the many levels of hell called Jigoku. And that's where the Oni live. They're the enforcers, the executioners, the ones who make sure you pay for every bad thing you ever did. Some stories describe Oni boiling people alive in massive cauldrons. Others say they tear you apart limb from limb, only for your body to regenerate so they can do it again. There are tales of Oni flaying the skin off sinners, forcing them to walk over mountains of needles, or crushing them under boulders repeatedly. And the worst part? They enjoy it. Oni are sadistic. They take pleasure in your screams, in your agony. To them, this is entertainment. But Oni don't just stay in hell. In some legends, they can cross over into the human world, especially during times of chaos or disaster. They're said to appear during wars, plagues, or natural disasters, feeding on the fear and death that surrounds these events. Some stories describe Oni kidnapping people, dragging them back to hell while they're still alive just because they felt like it. There are tales of entire villages being terrorized by Oni who appeared out of nowhere, smashing homes, killing livestock, and abducting anyone who got too close. And if an Oni decides it wants you, there's almost no way to stop it. They're incredibly strong, nearly invincible, and they don't feel pain the way humans do. Now, there are supposed ways to protect yourself from Oni, but they're not exactly comforting. Some people believe that throwing roasted soybeans at an Oni will drive it away, which sounds insane, but is actually part of a traditional Japanese ritual called setsuban. Others say you can ward off Oni by placing holly leaves and dried sardine heads at your door, because apparently Oni hate the smell. But let's be real, if a 10-foot-tall demon with an iron club is coming for you, some beans and fish heads probably aren't going to cut it. The most reliable protection? Don't be evil. Live a good life. Because the Oni are specifically drawn to the wicked, to people who've hurt others, and they can smell sin like bloodhounds. What makes the Oni so disturbing is the inevitability they represent. If you do wrong, if you hurt people, if you live a life of cruelty, the Oni are waiting. There's no escaping them, no bargaining with them. They're the ultimate consequence, the enforcers of cosmic justice. And the way they deliver that justice? It's not clean, it's not quick, and it's definitely not merciful. The Oni are a reminder that actions have consequences, and those consequences might be waiting for you long after you think you've gotten away with something. That's not just scary, that's existentially terrifying, because it means no matter how far you run, no matter how well you hide, judgment is coming, and it's bringing a spiked club.
Charybdis. Now, we're diving into Greek mythology, and let me tell you about one of the most unstoppable, absolutely terrifying sea monsters ever imagined, Charybdis. And here's what makes this creature so horrifying. You can't fight it. You can't reason with it. You can't even see it most of the time. All you know is that the water around you starts swirling, faster and faster, pulling everything down into this massive whirlpool. And once you're caught in it, that's it. Your ship, your crew, everything you have, gone. Swallowed whole by the sea and dragged down into an abyss you'll never escape from. Charybdis isn't just a monster. It's a force of nature, an inevitable death sentence for anyone unlucky enough to sail near it. And according to Greek legend, this thing has been sitting in the same spot for thousands of years, just waiting for ships to pass by so it can devour them. The story of Charybdis goes way back to ancient Greek mythology, and it appears in some of the most famous tales, including Homer's Odyssey. Charybdis is described as a massive sea creature that lives under the water in a narrow strait, and 3 times a day it opens its enormous mouth and sucks in the entire ocean around it. We're talking about a creature so huge that it creates whirlpools powerful enough to pull entire warships underwater in seconds. Some versions say Charybdis was once a woman, the daughter of Poseidon, who was cursed by Zeus and transformed into this monster as punishment for stealing cattle. Others say it was always a creature born from the chaos of the primordial sea. Either way, the result is the same: a nightmarish entity that exists only to consume. And here's what makes Charybdis uniquely terrifying. It's not hunting you. It's not angry. It's not even aware of you. It just feeds. It's like a black hole. It doesn't care who you are, how strong you are, or how good of a sailor you are. If you're in the wrong place when Charybdis starts feeding, you're dead. Period. Ancient sailors described hearing this horrible sucking sound, like the ocean itself was being drained, and then seeing the water around them start to spiral. At first it's slow, almost hypnotic, but then it speeds up. The spiral gets tighter, faster, and no matter how hard you row, no matter which direction you steer, you can't escape the pull. Your ship tilts, the crew starts screaming, and then you're dragged under. The water closes over you, and that's the last thing you ever see. In the Odyssey, Odysseus has to sail through a strait where Charybdis lives on one side and another monster, Scylla, lives on the other. It's literally a choice between 2 deaths. And what does he choose? He chooses Scylla, the monster that will only kill a few of his men, rather than risk Charybdis, which will destroy the entire ship. That's how feared Charybdis was. Even the greatest heroes of Greek mythology would rather face a 6-headed serpent than take their chances with the whirlpool. And in later parts of the story, when Odysseus does get too close to Charybdis, it nearly kills him. His ship is destroyed, his men drown, and he barely survives by clinging to a piece of driftwood while the monster churns the water beneath him. What makes Charybdis even more disturbing is that there's no escape once you're caught. With most monsters, there's at least a chance. You can fight back, you can run, you can outsmart them. But with Charybdis, the moment you're in that whirlpool, physics takes over. The water is pulling you down with the force of thousands of tons of pressure. Your ship splinters apart. You're thrown into the churning water, disoriented, choking, unable to tell which way is up. And even if you somehow manage to hold your breath, even if you fight with everything you have, the current is stronger. It drags you deeper and deeper until the pressure crushes you, or you run out of air, or you just disappear into the dark. And here's the really unsettling part. Charybdis represents something we still fear today: the uncontrollable power of the ocean. We like to think we've mastered the sea, that we have technology and knowledge that keeps us safe. But the ocean doesn't care. It's indifferent to human life. And Charybdis is the personification of that indifference, a reminder that no matter how advanced we become, nature can still swallow us whole without even noticing. That's primal terror. That's the fear of being small, powerless, and insignificant in the face of something so much larger than yourself. And that's why Charybdis still haunts us.
Ghouls. All right, let's talk about one of the most disgusting and deeply disturbing creatures in Arabian mythology: ghouls. And when I say disturbing, I mean these things literally eat the dead. They dig up graves, break into tombs, and feast on rotting corpses. But here's what makes them even worse. They're intelligent. They're not mindless zombies stumbling around. Ghouls are cunning, patient, and they know exactly what they're doing. They wait until you're alone, until you're vulnerable, and then they strike. And if they can't find a fresh corpse to eat, they'll hunt living people, kill them, and then devour the body. So yeah, we're dealing with grave-robbing, flesh-eating demons that have been terrifying people in the Middle East for over 1,000 years. Let me break down why ghouls are so horrifying and why they've spread into almost every culture's nightmares. Ghouls originate from Arabian and Islamic folklore, and they're mentioned in ancient texts going back centuries. The word ghoul comes from the Arabic hul, which means demon or evil spirit. These creatures are described as undead or demonic beings that lurk in graveyards, ruins, and deserted places. They're often depicted as humanoid, but twisted, pale, decaying skin, long claws, sharp teeth, and eyes that glow in the dark. Some descriptions say they're hunched over, moving on all fours like animals, while others describe them standing upright but with limbs that are too long and movements that are too jerky, too unnatural. And the smell. Every story mentions the smell. Ghouls reek of death and decay, a stench so powerful that people know they're nearby before they even see them. But here's what makes them truly disturbing: their behavior. They're not just mindless eating machines, they're strategic. Ghouls are known to dig up fresh graves under the cover of night, tearing through dirt and stone to get to the bodies buried beneath. They crack open coffins, pull out corpses, and feast on the rotting flesh. And they're not picky. Old bodies, new bodies, doesn't matter. But here's where it gets worse. Ghouls can shapeshift. According to legend, a ghoul can take the appearance of the last person it ate, so it could dig up your dead relative, consume them, and then show up at your door looking exactly like them. Imagine answering a knock at night and seeing your deceased mother or brother standing there asking to come inside. You'd be so confused, so desperate to believe it's real, that you might actually let them in. And that's when the ghoul drops the disguise and attacks. And ghouls don't just stay in graveyards. When corpses are scarce, they venture out to hunt living prey. Ancient Arabian tales describe ghouls luring travelers into the desert by mimicking human voices, calling for help or pretending to be lost. You hear someone crying out in the darkness, you think you're being a good person by helping, and then you follow the voice right into a trap. The ghoul attacks from behind, overpowers you, kills you, and then drags your body back to its lair to feed. Some stories say ghouls live in underground caves or abandoned buildings where they store bodies, creating these horrifying pantries of corpses in various stages of decay. What's especially creepy is how widespread the ghoul legend became. It started in the Middle East, but the concept spread to Europe, Asia, and eventually the Western world. Different cultures adapted the myth, but the core remained the same: a creature that feeds on the dead and lives in places associated with death. In some versions, ghouls are the result of dark magic or curses. In others, they're demons that were never human to begin with. And in some modern interpretations, people can become ghouls by eating human flesh, similar to the Wendigo transformation. It's like the myth evolved to fit whatever scared people most in each culture. There are supposed ways to kill a ghoul, though they vary depending on who you ask. Some say you need to destroy the body completely, usually by burning it. Others claim that holy water or blessed weapons can kill them. But the problem is you have to get close enough to do it, and ghouls are fast, vicious, and fight with the desperation of something that's already dead and has nothing to lose. They're not afraid of pain, they're not afraid of death, because in many ways, they're already both. What makes ghouls so disturbing is how they violate one of our most sacred concepts: respect for the dead. We bury our loved ones with care, with ceremony, with the belief that they'll rest in peace. And the ghoul spits on that. It digs them up, desecrates them, consumes them. It's the ultimate violation, the ultimate disrespect. And that taps into a deep, primal fear that our bodies won't be safe even after death.
Lamia.
All right, now we're diving into Greek mythology again. And this time, we're talking about one of the most tragic and absolutely horrifying creatures ever created: Lamia. And here's what makes this story so disturbing. Lamia wasn't always a monster. She was a beautiful queen, a woman who was loved by Zeus himself. But because of jealousy, because of a curse, she was transformed into something so twisted and evil that she became known as the ultimate child-eating demon. Imagine losing everything: your children, your humanity, your very soul,
and then spending eternity hunting and devouring other people's children out of rage and grief. That's Lamia. She's a monster born from tragedy, and what she does is so unspeakably dark that parents in ancient Greece used her name to scare their kids into behaving. Go to sleep, or Lamia will come for you. And they meant it. The myth of Lamia starts with a love affair. She was a queen of Libya, stunningly beautiful, and she caught the attention of Zeus, the king of the gods. They had an affair, and Lamia bore him several children. But Zeus's wife, Hera, found out. And Hera, being the goddess of jealousy and vengeance, didn't go after Zeus, she went after Lamia. Hera killed all of Lamia's children, every single one. And depending on which version you read, she either killed them outright or forced Lamia to watch as they died, one by one. Can you imagine that? Watching your children die and being completely powerless to stop it? That kind of grief, that kind of rage, it breaks something inside a person. And that's exactly what happened to Lamia. The grief and anger consumed her so completely that she transformed. Some say Hera cursed her, others say it was the sheer force of her own emotions, but either way, Lamia became a monster. Her beautiful face twisted into something reptilian, her lower body transformed into a serpent's tail. And worst of all, she was cursed to never sleep. Hera made sure that Lamia would be tormented by the memories of her dead children every single moment for the rest of eternity. No rest, no escape, just endless, agonizing remembrance. And so, Lamia, in her madness and pain, decided that if her children were taken from her, she would take other people's children. If she couldn't have happiness, no one else would either. And that's when Lamia became the monster that haunted ancient Greece. She would sneak into homes at night, slipping through windows or doors while parents slept, and she would steal children from their beds. And then she would devour them. Some versions say she drinks their blood, others say she eats them whole. But the result is always the same. The child is gone, and there's nothing left for grief for the parents. And Lamia feels nothing. Or maybe she feels everything, and that's why she keeps doing it. Maybe every child she takes is an attempt to fill the void her own children left behind. But it never works. The hunger never stops. The pain never ends. What makes Lamia even more disturbing is that in some versions, she retains her beauty. She can appear as a stunning woman, seductive and charming, to lure young men or unsuspecting victims close before revealing her true form. So she's not just a monster, she's a deceiver. She uses what remains of her humanity as a weapon. And there are stories of Lamia falling in love with men only to devour them when they discover what she really is. It's like she's trapped between two worlds, the human she used to be and the monster she's become, and she can't fully exist in either one. And here's one of the cruelest parts of her curse. Some versions say Zeus took pity on Lamia and gave her the ability to remove her eyes so she could sleep, but every time she takes them out, Hera's curse forces her to see visions of her dead children anyway. So even when she tries to rest, even when she tries to escape, she can't. She's trapped in her own personal hell forever. What makes Lamia so powerful as a myth is the tragedy behind it. She's not evil because she wants to be, she's evil because she was broken by forces beyond her control. She's a victim who became a predator. And that's terrifying because it's real. Pain can change people. Trauma can twist you into something you never thought you'd become. Lamia represents the dark side of grief, the part that wants to hurt others because you're hurting. And that's why she's haunted human imagination for thousands of years.
Pontus Siren. All right, now we're getting into the top 10, and things are about to get seriously dark. Let's talk about one of the most haunting and relentless creatures from medieval European folklore, the Pontus Siren. And this isn't your typical mermaid sitting on a rock singing pretty songs. No, the Pontus Siren is the ghost of someone who drowned, and now they exist for one purpose only: to drag you underwater and keep you there forever. Imagine swimming in a lake or river, enjoying a nice day, and suddenly you feel hands grab your ankles. You look down into the murky water and see a pale face staring up at you with dead, hollow eyes. You try to kick free, but the grip is impossibly strong, cold as ice, and no matter how hard you fight, you're being pulled down.
And the worst part? Once you're under, once you drown, you become one of them. You join the Pontus sirens, trapped underwater for eternity, waiting for the next victim. That's the nightmare we're dealing with here. The Pontus siren legend comes from medieval Europe, particularly from regions near large bodies of water, like rivers, lakes, and coastal areas. The name Pontus refers to the sea or deep water, and these creatures are specifically the spirits of people who died by drowning. But they're not resting peacefully. They're angry, vengeful, and desperately lonely. According to the legend, when someone drowns, especially if it was a violent or unjust death, their spirit doesn't move on. Instead, it stays trapped in the water, bound to the place where they died. And over time, that spirit becomes twisted. The sadness turns to rage. The loneliness becomes hunger. And the Pontus siren begins hunting for others to join them in their watery grave. The descriptions of Pontus sirens are absolutely chilling. They appear as pale, waterlogged corpses with bloated skin, tangled hair full of algae and weeds, and eyes that are either completely white or dark and empty. Their clothes are tattered and rotting, clinging to their bodies like seaweed. Some stories say their mouths are always open, as if they're still screaming or gasping for air, frozen in that final moment of drowning. And they move through the water unnaturally, not swimming, but gliding, like they're being pulled by an invisible current. When they grab you, their hands are freezing cold, so cold it feels like your bones are turning to ice. And their grip? It's described as unbreakable, like iron shackles clamped around your limbs. But here's what makes the Pontus siren truly disturbing. They're not mindless. They remember being human. They remember drowning. They remember the terror, the panic, the burning in their lungs as water filled them. And they want you to feel it too. Some versions of the legend say the Pontus sirens can communicate, whispering to you underwater in voices that sound like bubbles and distant echoes. "Stay with us," they say. "Don't leave us alone." It's not just about killing, it's about companionship. They're so desperate for company, so driven mad by isolation, that they'll drown you just so you can be with them forever. And once you drown, once you become one of them, you're trapped. You can't leave the water. You can't move on. You just exist in that cold, dark, suffocating space, waiting for the next person to pull under. And the Pontus sirens are patient. They don't attack immediately. They watch. They wait for the perfect moment. Maybe you're swimming alone. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you drift too far from shore. And that's when they strike. People who have survived near-drowning experiences in areas known for these legends describe feeling hands on them, feeling something pulling them down. But when they looked, they couldn't see anything. Just shadows in the water, just the sensation of being watched from below. And in some cases, swimmers reported seeing faces just beneath the surface, pale and distorted, mouths opening and closing like fish, hands reaching up but not quite breaking through. There are supposed ways to protect yourself from Pontus sirens, though they're not exactly foolproof. Some say you should never swim alone, especially in places where drownings have occurred. Others claim that wearing iron or carrying religious symbols can ward them off. In some regions, people would bless the water before swimming, asking for protection from the spirits that dwell below. But the most common advice, well, just don't go in the water after dark, because that's when the Pontus sirens are most active, when the light is gone and the water becomes this dark, unknowable void, where anything could be lurking just beneath the surface. What makes the Pontus siren so terrifying is how it plays on our fear of drowning and the fear of what's beneath us when we're in the water. When you're swimming, you can't see what's below you. You can't know what's down there, and your mind starts to imagine things. That's where the Pontus siren lives, in that space between reality and imagination, in that primal fear of being pulled under and never coming back up. It's not just death, it's eternal imprisonment in the very thing that killed you. And that's a special kind of horror that never gets old.
Night Marchers. Let me tell you about one of the most terrifying legends from Hawaiian culture, the Night Marchers. And what makes this one so disturbing is that you don't even have to do anything wrong to die. You could just be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that's it. Game over. The Night Marchers are the ghost of ancient Hawaiian warriors, and they march through the islands at night in full spiritual procession, drums beating, torches blazing, chanting ancient war songs. And if you see them, if you make eye contact with them, you die. Right there, on the spot. Your heart just stops. There's no fighting them, no running from them. The only way to survive is either to lie face down on the ground and don't move, don't look, don't breathe loud enough for them to notice, or have an ancestor among them who recognizes you and spares your life. That's it. Those are your only options. So yeah, the Night Marchers don't mess around. The legend of the Night Marchers, or Huakaipo in Hawaiian, goes back centuries, long before Europeans ever set foot on the islands. These are the spirits of ancient Hawaiian warriors, chiefs, and ali, the royalty who are cursed or bound to march eternally through specific paths across the islands. These paths are called spirit roads, and they follow ancient trails that were used by Hawaiian royalty in life. The Night Marchers appear on certain nights, particularly during significant lunar phases or on important dates in the Hawaiian calendar. And when they march, it's not quiet. People describe hearing drums first, the deep rhythmic pounding of traditional Hawaiian drums echoing through the night. Then come the voices, chanting, war cries, the sounds of hundreds of warriors moving as one. Then you see the torches, flickering lights moving through the darkness in perfect formation. And if you're anywhere near their path, you need to hide immediately. Because here's the thing about the Night Marchers. They don't care who you are or why you're there. If you're standing in their path, if you look at them, if you even acknowledge their presence, they will kill you. And it's not a violent death. It's just instant. Your heart stops. Your life force is taken. Some say it's because mortals aren't meant to witness the sacred processions of the dead. Others say the warriors are so powerful, so charged with spiritual energy, that a living person simply can't withstand their presence. Either way, the result is the same. You die. And there have been modern reports, actual documented cases of people claiming to have encountered the Night Marchers. Hikers found dead on trails with no signs of injury. Drivers who crashed their cars on remote roads and were found with expressions of pure terror frozen on their faces. Locals who ignored warnings and went out on nights when the Night Marchers were expected to march and never came home. And what makes this even chilling is how seriously Hawaiian culture takes this. This isn't a cute ghost story they tell tourists. This is real belief, passed down through generations. There are specific areas on each island where the Night Marchers are known to march, and locals avoid those places on certain nights. Even modern Hawaiians who grew up in cities, who have college degrees and smartphones, will tell you straight up, don't go to that trail at night. Don't mess with the Night Marchers. And they mean it. There are stories of construction projects being stopped because they interfered with a known Night Marcher path, of homes built in certain areas where the families experienced constant bad luck, illness, and death until they finally moved. Because you don't disrespect the dead in Hawaiian culture. You don't build on their paths. You don't interrupt their journey. The only way to survive an encounter, like I said, is to lie completely flat on the ground, face down, and don't move. Don't look up. Don't try to see them. Just press yourself into the earth and pray they pass by without noticing you. Some versions say you should strip naked to show complete submission and vulnerability. Others say you need to have a blood relative among the marchers, an ancestor who was a warrior or ali. And if they recognize you, they might protect you from the others. But if you don't have that connection, if you're just some random person who happened to be there, you're relying entirely on luck. And the Night Marchers don't seem to be in a merciful mood most of the time. What makes the Night Marchers uniquely terrifying is the inevitability of it. Most legends give you some way to fight back, some way to defend yourself. But with the Night Marchers, your only defense is to not be seen, to make yourself as small and invisible as possible and hope they don't notice you. It's about being completely powerless in the presence of something far greater than you. And that feeling, that absolute helplessness, is what makes this legend stick with people, because it reminds us that there are forces in this world we don't understand, and some of them don't care about us at all.
Kuchisakeona, the slit-mouthed woman, or Kuchisakeona from Japan. And let me tell you why this one gets under your skin. It's interactive. This isn't a ghost that just appears and kills you. No, the slit-mouthed woman asks you a question, and depending on how you answer, you either die quickly or you die horribly. Imagine walking home alone at night, and you see a beautiful woman standing under a streetlight. She's wearing a surgical mask, which is common in Japan, so you don't think much of it. But then she approaches you. She gets close, and she asks in a soft, almost childlike voice, "Watashi, kirei? Am I pretty?" And here's the thing, there is no right answer. Every response leads to death. That's the nightmare of the slit-mouthed woman. She's a trap, a game you can't win, and by the time you realize what's happening, it's already too late. The legend of Kuchisakeona originated in Japan, and it exploded in popularity during the 1970s and 80s, causing genuine mass hysteria. Schools were dismissed early, police increased patrols, people were terrified to go out after dark. Why? Because the story felt real. The slit-mouthed woman is described as a tall, beautiful woman with long black hair, wearing a beige or tan trench coat and a surgical mask covering the lower half of her face. She carries a pair of scissors, large, sharp surgical scissors, and she targets people walking alone, especially children and young adults. When she stops you, she asks that question, "Watashi, kirei? Am I pretty?" And here's where it gets terrifying. If you say no, she kills you immediately, scabbing you with the scissors or slashing your throat. If you say yes, she pulls down her mask, and that's when you see it. Her mouth is cut from ear to ear in a grotesque, permanent smile. The scar is deep, ragged, exposing teeth and gums, this horrifying Glasgow smile that shouldn't exist on a living person. And then she asks again, "How about now? Am I pretty now?" And if you scream, if you say no, if you show any horror or disgust, she chases you down and kills you. She's fast, impossibly fast, and she'll slash you across the face with her scissors, giving you the same wound she has, cutting your mouth ear to ear so you die looking just like her. But if you say yes again, if you lie and tell her she's still pretty, she follows you home. And when you think you're safe, when you close the door behind you, she appears inside your house and kills you anyway. There's no escape. Every answer leads to death. But here's where the legend gets even darker. There are stories about her origin. The most common version says she was a beautiful woman, maybe a geisha or the wife of a samurai who was caught cheating or was accused of vanity. As punishment, her mouth was cut from ear to ear by her husband or an angry rival. Some versions say she survived and went insane, becoming this vengeful spirit. Others say she died from the wound and came back as a ghost, forever trapped in that moment of mutilation and pain. And now she wanders the streets asking that question over and over, looking for validation that can never come. Because deep down, she knows the answer. She knows she's not pretty anymore. She knows she's a monster. And that's what drives her rage. And the slit-mouthed woman legend isn't just old folklore. There are modern sightings. In the 1970s, there were actual police reports of a woman matching her description being seen near schools. Children reported being chased. Some claimed she appeared in cars that drove past them slowly. The panic got so bad that schools sent letters home warning parents, and kids were told to walk in groups and never alone. Even today, there are stories on Japanese internet forums of people encountering her, of seeing a woman in a surgical mask who asked them that question, and they ran before finding out what happened next. What makes the slit-mouthed woman so disturbing is the psychological trap she represents. She forces you to make a choice, but every choice is wrong.
It's about the impossibility of winning, the feeling of being cornered with no way out, and it plays on our fear of disfigurement, of hidden horror behind a normal appearance. She looks human until she doesn't. And that moment of revelation, when the mask comes down, that's pure nightmare fuel. Because you realize you were never safe. You were doomed the moment she spoke to you.
Penanggalan. We're heading back to Malaysia for what might be the most visually disturbing creature on this entire list, the Penanggalan. And I'm warning you right now, this one is absolutely disgusting. Forget everything you know about vampires or ghosts because the Penanggalan is something else entirely. Imagine this. It's the middle of the night, you're lying in bed, and you hear something wet slapping against your window. You look over, and in the moonlight, you see a woman's head floating outside, her hair trailing behind her, and beneath her head, her internal organs are just hanging there. Heart, lungs, stomach, intestines, all dangling like grotesque streamers dripping blood and digestive fluids. And she's staring at you with glowing eyes, mouth open, fangs visible, and she's trying to get inside. That's the Penanggalan. And what she wants is to feed on your blood, specifically if you're pregnant or just gave birth. This is body horror at its absolute worst. The Penanggalan legend comes from Malaysian and Indonesian folklore, and it's one of those myths that's so specific, so detailed, that you know it came from deep cultural fears. According to the legend, a Penanggalan isn't a creature that was always a monster. It's a woman who became cursed, usually through black magic or by breaking a spiritual contract. The most common story says she was a beautiful woman who practiced dark magic to stay young and attractive. But during one ritual, something went wrong. Maybe she was interrupted, maybe she violated the terms of her magic, but whatever happened, the curse took hold. And now every night her head detaches from her body, trailing all her internal organs behind it, and she flies through the darkness hunting for blood. And the way she hunts is absolutely horrifying. The Penanggalan specifically targets pregnant women, women who just gave birth, and newborn babies. Why? Because according to the legend, she feeds on blood, yes, but also on the life force of new mothers and infants. Some versions say she uses her long, serpent-like tongue to drain blood. Others say she lands on rooftops and uses her intestines like grotesque tentacles to reach through windows or gaps in the walls, extending down to where the victim is sleeping, and then feeding on them without them even waking up. The woman or baby just gets weaker and weaker, losing blood, and no one knows why until they see the telltale signs. Scratch marks on the roof, a trail of blood and fluid, that awful rotting smell. But here's what makes the Penanggalan even more disturbing. During the day, she's normal. Her head reattaches to her body, and she walks around like any other person. She could be your neighbor, your friend, someone you trust, and you'd never know. The only way to identify a Penanggalan during the day is by smell. She reeks of vinegar because she has to soak her organs in vinegar every night to shrink them enough to fit back into her body. So if you meet a woman who constantly smells like vinegar and avoids being around pregnant women, that's a red flag. But even if you suspect someone, what are you going to do? Accuse them of being a flying head monster? In traditional villages, women suspected of being Penanggalans were sometimes killed or driven out, which shows you how seriously this legend was taken. And there are ways to supposedly stop a Penanggalan, but they're brutal. If you find her body while her head is detached, you can destroy it or hide it, and when she comes back, she won't be able to reattach and will die at sunrise. Another method is to scatter thorns or sharp objects around your house, because when her organs are dangling, they're vulnerable and she'll get caught and tangled in the thorns, trapping her until morning. Some stories say you can place a type of thorny plant called a milnkwang around windows and doors to keep her out. But if she does get inside, if she reaches you, there's not much you can do. She's fast, vicious, and driven by an insatiable hunger. What makes the Penanggalan uniquely terrifying is the visceral body horror of it. This isn't a ghost or a shadow creature. This is a human head with everything inside exposed, floating through the air, dripping, pulsing, alive in the most unnatural way possible. It violates every sense of how a body should work, how a person should look, and it specifically targets one of the most vulnerable times in a person's life, pregnancy and childbirth. It turns what should be a time of joy and new life into a nightmare. The Penanggalan represents every fear about the fragility of life, about things going wrong with our bodies, about hidden threats we can't see coming. And that's why this legend has lasted for centuries and still makes people uncomfortable today.
Baba Yaga. Things are getting seriously dark. Let's talk about one of the most iconic and absolutely terrifying figures in Slavic folklore, Baba Yaga. And here's what makes her so disturbing. She's not just a monster, she's an ancient, powerful witch who lives deep in the forest in a house that stands on giant chicken legs. And she decides whether you live or die based on, well, sometimes there's no reason at all. She just feels like it. Baba Yaga is chaos personified. Sometimes she helps people, sometimes she eats them, and you never know which version you're going to get until it's too late. Imagine being lost in the woods, starving, desperate, and you stumble upon a hut. But as you get closer, you realize the hut is moving, rotating on massive, scaly chicken legs. And inside you hear cackling. That's Baba Yaga's home. And if you knock on that door, you better hope she's in a good mood. Because if she's not, you're going in her oven. Baba Yaga is one of the oldest and most widespread figures in Slavic mythology, appearing in Russian, Polish, Ukrainian, and other Eastern European folklore. She's described as an ancient crone, impossibly old, with iron teeth, a long hooked nose, and wild matted hair. She's thin and bony, but incredibly strong. Some stories say she has a body made of living wood or bones. Her eyes glow in the dark, and her voice is described as crackling, like fire burning dry wood. She flies through the forest in a giant mortar, using a pestle to steer and a broom to sweep away her tracks so no one can follow her. And her home, it's this nightmare hut called Izbushka, standing on enormous chicken legs that allow it to walk, turn, run, or crouch down. The hut is surrounded by a fence made of human bones, topped with skulls whose eyes glow at night. And at the gate, there are more bones, locks made from human hands, bolts made from human feet. Everything about Baba Yaga's home screams death. But here's where Baba Yaga gets really interesting and terrifying. She's unpredictable. In some stories, she's a helpful figure, a wise woman who gives advice or magical gifts to those who prove themselves worthy. In others, she's a straight-up cannibal who lures children and travelers into her hut, throws them in her oven, and eats them. And sometimes, she's both. She might test you with impossible tasks, and if you succeed, she'll help you. But if you fail, or if you disrespect her, or if she just doesn't like your face, into the oven you go. She's been described as guardian of the threshold between worlds, meaning she exists in that liminal space between life and death, civilization and wilderness, the known and the unknown. And anyone who encounters her is essentially gambling with their life. The stories about Baba Yaga are filled with horrifying details. She kidnaps children, especially naughty ones, and takes them back to her hut. Parents in Slavic countries used to tell their kids, "Behave or Baba Yaga will take you." And they weren't joking. She's also associated with death and winter. Some versions say she controls the weather, that she can summon blizzards or make forests impassable. In some tales, she has servants called the White Rider, the Red Rider, and the Black Rider, which represent day, sun, and night respectively. So she's not just a witch, she's a cosmic force, something that's been around since the beginning of time, and she'll be around long after humans are gone. And what makes Baba Yaga even more disturbing is that she's intelligent, she's clever, she knows when you're lying, she sees through deception. In many stories, heroes have to complete tasks for her, sorting grains, cleaning her house, answering riddles, and if they fail or try to cheat, she knows immediately. Some tales describe her sniffing the air and saying, "I smell Russian blood," meaning she can detect humans by scent alone, like a predator. And when she decides to chase you, she's relentless. She'll pursue you through the forest in her mortar, flying at impossible speeds, cackling the entire time. And you better have a plan because she does not give up. There are ways to survive Baba Yaga, but they require respect, cleverness, and usually a bit of luck. You have to be polite, complete whatever task she gives you, and never ever insult her. If you show courage and resourcefulness, she might let you live. She might even help you. But if you show weakness, fear, or disrespect, that's it. You're done. She'll cook you alive and pick your bones clean. What makes Baba Yaga so powerful as a legend is her complexity.
She's not purely evil, she's something older and stranger than that. She represents the dangers of the wilderness, the unpredictability of nature, and the idea that not everything can be understood or controlled. She's a reminder that the world doesn't owe you anything, that survival requires wit and respect, and that some forces are beyond human comprehension. Baba Yaga is chaos, she's death, she's wisdom, she's all of it at once. And that's what makes her unforgettable.
Kalapalik, and let me tell you about one of the most heartbreaking and deeply disturbing creatures from Inuit mythology, the Kalapalik. And what makes this one so dark is who it targets. Children. Specifically children who wander too close to the water alone. Imagine being a kid, playing near the shore of a frozen lake or river, and you see something moving under the ice. At first you think it's just a fish or a shadow, but then you see a hand. Long, green, webbed fingers pressing against the ice from below. And then a face appears. Pale, almost human, but wrong. The eyes are too large, the skin is slimy and covered in scales, and it's staring directly at you with this horrible, knowing smile. That's the Kalapalik. And if you're alone, if there's no adult nearby to protect you, it will break through the ice, grab you with those freezing cold hands, stuff you into the pouch on its back, and drag you down into the dark water. And you're never seen again. The Kalapalik comes from Inuit folklore, from the harsh, frozen regions of the Arctic, where survival depends on respecting the dangers around you. The creature is described as a humanoid sea monster, with green or gray scaly skin, long tangled hair made of seaweed, and webbed hands with long, claw-like fingernails. It wears tattered clothing, often made from animal skins, and carries a large pouch called an amauti on its back, the same type of pouch Inuit mothers use to carry their babies. But the Kalapalik doesn't carry babies to protect them, it carries them to drown them. The creature lives under the ice in the freezing Arctic waters, lurking near shorelines, waiting for children who disobey their parents, who wander off alone, who get too close to cracks in the ice or open water. And when it finds one, it strikes. The way the Kalapalik hunts is absolutely chilling. It waits, patiently, sometimes for hours, days, watching from beneath the ice or hiding in the dark water near the shore. And when a child gets close enough, it reaches up through a crack or a thin spot in the ice and grabs them. The child barely has time to scream before they're pulled under. Some stories say the Kalapalik hums a lullaby to lure children closer, a soft, haunting melody that sounds almost comforting. Kids hear it and feel drawn to the water, like they're being called by someone they trust. And by the time they realize what's happening, it's too late. The Kalapalik stuffs them into its pouch, and the child is dragged down into the freezing water, trapped in darkness, unable to breathe, unable to escape. And they're never found. The ice closes over them, and it's like they never existed. What makes the Kalapalik especially disturbing is the cultural context. This legend wasn't just a scary story, it was a survival tool. Inuit parents told their children about the Kalapalik to keep them safe. The Arctic is one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. Thin ice, freezing water, sudden storms. Children who wandered off alone could easily die, so the Kalapalik served as a warning. Stay close to your family, don't go near the water alone, respect the dangers around you. But it's more than just a cautionary tale. The Kalapalik represents every parent's worst nightmare, losing a child, especially in a way where you can't save them, where they're just gone. No body to bury, no closure, just the knowledge that something took them and they're suffering somewhere you can't reach. And there are modern accounts, stories passed down through Inuit communities of children who disappeared near water and were never found. Families who heard humming near the shore before a child went missing. Elders who swear they've seen something moving under the ice, something that looked almost human but moved too smoothly, too deliberately. Whether these stories are literal or metaphorical doesn't really matter. The fear is real, the danger is real, and the Kalapalik embodies that perfectly. What makes the Kalapalik uniquely terrifying is the innocence of its victims. It doesn't hunt warriors or criminals or people who've done something wrong. It hunts children. Kids who were just playing, who made a mistake,
who wandered a little too far. And there's something deeply unsettling about a creature that specifically preys on the most vulnerable, the most innocent members of society. It represents the randomness of tragedy, the idea that bad things can happen to good people, or in this case to children, for no reason at all. The Kalaalleq doesn't care if you're a good kid or a bad kid. It just cares that you're alone and within reach. And that image, a child's face pressed against the ice from underneath, hands clawing, trying to get out while the Kalaalleq drags them deeper into the black water, that's the stuff of pure nightmares. It's suffocation, drowning, cold, darkness, and helplessness all combined into one horrifying fate. The Kalaalleq isn't just a monster. It's every fear a parent has, every fear a child has, made real.
The Jersey Devil.
The most disturbing legendary creature on this list? The Jersey Devil. And let me tell you why this one takes the top spot. It's real. Or at least, thousands of people believe it's real. This isn't some ancient myth from a faraway land. This is an American legend, and it's still being reported today. The Jersey Devil has been seen by police officers, government officials, ordinary people, all describing the same nightmare creature flying through the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. A monstrous, demonic figure with the head of a horse, bat-like wings, cloven hooves, and a long, forked tail, screaming like a human in agony as it flies through the night. And it attacks. It kills livestock, terrorizes families, and some say it's even killed people. This isn't folklore from centuries ago. This is modern American horror. And it's still out there. The legend of the Jersey Devil starts in the 1700s with a woman named Mother Leeds. According to the story, she lived in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, a massive, dense forest that's still largely wilderness today. Mother Leeds already had 12 children, and when she found out she was pregnant with the 13th, she was furious. In a moment of rage and desperation, she cursed the child, saying something like, "Let this one be a devil." And when the baby was born, her curse came true. The child was normal at first, but then it started to change. Right there, in front of the family, the newborn transformed. Its face elongated into a horse-like snout with sharp teeth. Wings sprouted from its back, leathery, bat-like wings. Its feet turned into hooves. A long, forked tail grew from its spine. And then it screamed. A horrible, inhuman sound that echoed through the house. And before anyone could react, it killed the midwife, attacked its own mother, and flew up the chimney into the night. And it's been haunting the Pine Barrens ever since. Now, here's where it gets really disturbing. People still see it. We're not talking about sightings that stopped in the 1800s. We're talking about the 1900s, the 2000s, up to modern day. In 1909, there was a week-long mass panic called the Devil's Week, where hundreds of people across New Jersey and Pennsylvania reported seeing the Jersey Devil. Schools closed, factories shut down. People refused to leave their homes. Witnesses included police officers, postmasters, firemen, credible people who had no reason to lie. They all described the same thing. A creature about 3 to 4 feet tall went on the ground, but with a wingspan of several feet, flying overhead, making this awful screeching sound. It left tracks, hoof prints that appeared on rooftops, in snow, in places no animals should be able to reach. It killed chickens, dogs, even attacked a trolley car full of passengers. And the attacks haven't stopped. Throughout the 20th century and into the 21st, there have been consistent reports. Hikers in the Pine Barrens hearing screams that don't sound like any animal. Drivers seeing something massive fly over their cars on dark roads. Farmers finding livestock mutilated in ways that don't make sense. And the thing is, the Pine Barrens is a real place. It's over 1 million acres of dense, undeveloped forest. You could hide anything in there. And people who've explored deep into those woods say there are areas that just feel wrong. Places where birds don't sing, where the air is heavy, where you get this overwhelming feeling that you're being watched. What makes the Jersey Devil uniquely terrifying is the combination of factors. It's a cursed birth,
a child rejected by its own mother, transformed into a demon. It's been around for over 250 years, which means it's either immortal or there's more than one. It attacks without warning or reason, killing animals and terrorizing families seemingly at random. And it's American. This isn't something from ancient mythology. This is in our backyard. It's in New Jersey, a state millions of people live in or drive through. The Pine Barrens is right there between major cities, and this thing is supposedly still in there, still flying, still hunting. And here's what really gets me: the screams. Every description mentions the screaming. People say it sounds like a woman being murdered, or a child crying in pain, or something that's almost human but not quite. It's a sound that triggers every primal alarm in your brain, that makes your blood run cold, that tells you something is very, very wrong. And when you hear it echoing through the forest at night, when you're alone in the dark and you hear that inhuman shriek somewhere in the trees, that's when you understand why this legend has lasted so long. The Jersey Devil represents something uniquely American: the fear of the wilderness, of the unknown places that still exist even in our developed modern world. It's the idea that we haven't conquered everything, that there are still places where we're not in control, where something else lives and hunts. And it's the fear of curses, of sins coming back to haunt us, of rejecting something innocent and creating a monster as a result. The Jersey Devil is tragedy, horror, and mystery all rolled into one demonic package. And the fact that people are still seeing it, still reporting it, still refusing to go into certain parts of the Pine Barrens at night, that's what makes it number one. Because this legend isn't dead, it's still alive. And maybe, just maybe, so is the creature.